What's happening, guys? Welcome to another video, and today we've got something a little bit different. We're going to be doing a tier list, and I've just created this one. This one is the WWE's worst gimmicks of the Ruthless Aggression era. Now that we're in 2020, the next decade, I feel like we can now start to look back at the Ruthless Aggression era as something that is maybe a bit more nostalgic. Obviously the last decade we looked back towards the Attitude Era for nostalgia, but now this was surprisingly 15-20 years ago itself was the Ruthless Aggression era, so today we're going to be looking at the very worst gimmicks of that time, and we're going to be splitting these gimmicks into the worst of the worst, awful, bad, pretty decent, and some that were so bad that they were actually pretty good. So yeah, let's get started with Simon Dean, formerly Nova of ECW fame. Where would we put Simon Dean? I mean, pretty decent. I'll put Simon Dean in pretty decent. I've seen worse gimmicks. I will say he is the kind of guy that you could have put in almost any gimmick at any time and they'll get something out of it. I mean, he is a very good performer. I'm surprised he never stayed around a little longer, never done anything else after the Simon Dean gimmick, to be honest. Pretty decent in the ring. Overall good performer. Next up we have Big Dick Johnson. This one, worst of the worst, let's keep it real. This one is probably one of the worst gimmicks of the time, one of the worst gimmicks of all time, to be honest. His gimmick was basically, he was some sort of male stripper. He used to come out of boxes and stuff like that. I'm not even too sure what his purpose was at the time. No one really found it funny, so he is going to be in the worst of the worst. Boogeyman. Now, to be honest, again, Boogeyman I'm putting in pretty decent, because he's the kind of guy you can still pull out at these Raw anniversary shows. You can still have him make an appearance. He's somewhat entertaining if you don't overuse him. Next up, Eugene. Now this one's pretty controversial. I'm going to just sort of sit on the fence here and go with bad. I mean, it depends how you look at it. People these days, it would definitely be seen as very offensive. He had learning disabilities, I believe you would call it, and he was a wrestler. That was his gimmick. But you know what I mean, at the time they made it work. He had some good matches. He was actually a good wrestler. I believe he beat Triple H at one point, if I'm right as well. But yeah, basically he was the nephew of Eric Bischoff. Quite a good run, quite a few good entertaining segments. But to be honest, I don't think we'll ever be seeing any sort of a Eugene return in the WWE, even for nostalgic purposes. I think we've seen the last of him. Next up we have Festus, currently known as Luke Gallows. Where are we going to put Festus? I'll go with awful, to be honest. I mean, it's not the worst of the worst. He's nowhere near as bad as Big Dick Johnson. At least he was an active wrestler, and at least there was a reason for him to be a part of the show every week. But yeah, to be honest, the worst thing about him was actually that theme song, Biscuits and Gravy. That was more offensive to me than the gimmick itself. Next up we have Deuce and Domino with their manager Cherry, and I am actually going to put this as pretty good. I was a fan, I still am a fan of Deuce and Domino, and this is the kind of team I'd like to see them bring back on SmackDown. Remember they brought back the Headbangers for one episode of SmackDown? That kind of thing, that one really didn't work, but I would like to see them bring back Deuce and Domino and Cherry. I believe they could have a short run, bring back a bit of nostalgia. For some reason I just liked the gimmick. They really committed to it. I think that's what I liked about it. They didn't half-heart it, they were all in. And also they had tremendous entrance music, so I was a big fan of Deuce, Domino and Cherry. Next up we have the Gemini. I barely remember this team, to be honest. I think their gimmick was basically they were just two guys that go to the gym. I'm going to just stick them in bad. They're not awful, they're not good, they're not decent, they're just generic. That was really the worst thing about this team, they were just absolutely generic, they had nothing to them. Next up we have Mr. America. Now this one a lot more memorable than the Gemini. He had that rivalry with Vince McMahon during the whole Zach Gowen, Brock Lesnar thing. Yeah, this one wasn't the best, was it? I'm going to stick this one in awful because it was specifically bad, memorably bad, and the entire thing didn't make any sense whatsoever. And also, that was one of the last runs Hulk Hogan ever really had in the WWE as a kind of consistent full-time competitor. I know he did come back a couple of times for a match with Shawn Michaels and stuff like that, but this was really the last time Hulk Hogan was competing on TV on a weekly basis, and it was as Mr. America, not even Hulk Hogan. Next up we have the Highlanders, and of course because they are Scottish they are going directly into the pretty good. I'm kidding on, they're not going into the good, they're going into the bad. because much like the Gemini, they're basically generic. They weren't good, they weren't really anything, so I'm going to stick them in the middle of the pile here, because the most memorable thing about them was that the one with the hair, I don't know if that was Robbie or Rory, got fired for appearing in the crowd at a TNA live taping, so that literally is the only thing I remember about this entire tag team. Next up we have the Heartthrobs. Again, I'm going to put them in bad, much like the Highlanders and Gemini. Not very memorable at all. I think they even had a shorter run than the other two. I think these two maybe only wrestled on Raw for a month or two at the most. I literally can't remember a single segment they did. I just vaguely remember them existing. Next up we have Kerwin White, aka the former Chavo Guerrero. I'm going to put this one in awful, because again, his entire gimmick was basically he was just a stereotypical white guy. This entire thing had Vince McMahon's name written all over it. It's the sort of thing, you know, he finds hilarious. But I think this one's going to go down as one of the worst gimmicks, not just of the era, but of all time. And saying that, to be honest, I'm going to put this into the worst of the worst, because this is a historically bad gimmick. Now we've got L.O.D of Animal and Heidenreich. Heidenreich had numerous different bad gimmicks all throughout the Ruthless Aggression era. I'm going to put this one in awful. Isn't quite the worst of the worst, but it's pretty bad, I can tell you that. Animal at the time, obviously far too old to be holding WWE Championship gold, and Heidenreich has just got to be one of the most bizarre pairings for Animal as part of this new revised L.O.D. I don't really know the entire ins and outs of how this team even came to be, but that one could probably be an entire video of its own. Next up we have Muhammad Hassan, and I'm going to stick him in awful because of the timing of the entire gimmick and storyline. It went down during the London bombing attacks, and of course this entire gimmick was pretty racist as it is, so not much really good to be said about this one. The only reason it's not in the worst of the worst is I was a fan of Muhammad Hassan as a wrestler. He was good on the mic, so it would be a shame to put him in the worst of the worst. It's of no fault of his own that this was his gimmick. Next up we have Mordecai, also known as Kevin Thorne in ECW. He actually could have had 2 entries here. I'm actually going to put him in pretty decent, to be honest, because it could have been a better gimmick if given the chance. I think they killed this one a little bit too early. They could have went ahead and had a rivalry with The Undertaker. For whatever reason that never ended up happening, but I think they just killed this one a little bit too early. I would have liked to have seen how it would have went if they would have continued on with it. I was quite a fan, to be honest. I mean, it didn't last very long, but I did like the idea of it. I mean, to be honest, the entire gimmick of The Undertaker is ridiculous. If that wasn't given a chance, that could have been on one of these worst gimmicks lists as well. By the way, if you haven't already, check out the kayfabe history video of The Undertaker and Kane I've made. It's a half-hour biography of both of the characters' gimmicks, so check that out on the channel. Next up we have Superhero in Training, that is SHIT, Rosey. This was after he was a part of 3 Minute Warning, and he was a tag team partner with the Hurricane, as well as Stacy Keibler, so this one, I'm going to go with bad. It's a memorable gimmick, but there wasn't very many memorable moments from the gimmick, so yeah, I'm just going to go middle of the road bad. I've seen worse, I've seen better. The Spirit Squad, to be honest with you, I'm going to put this in pretty decent, because I thought they were alright. I mean, you can look back and say it was a bad gimmick, but they did have a little bit of a run again. I believe it was in 2016 on SmackDown, and it worked. I mean, they drew heat with the fans truly invested in the characters, and they did like to boo them, so that's half the battle in wrestling. You need to boo the bad guys, cheer the good guys. A lot of the people on this list got no reaction whatsoever, but at least the Spirit Squad did draw a reaction, so I'm going to put them in pretty decent. Next up we have SmackDown Tag Team, The Dicks, and again I remember literally nothing about this team. I remember they existed, but that is all. I'm going to put them in awful because I have nothing good to say about them. I don't really have much bad to say about them because I don't really remember anything they did, but I know enough to know that this team certainly was not good. Next up we have the Native American Tatanka, and this one was bizarre because he had a return full time for no real reason on the main roster. I remember him being on SmackDown. Piece of trivia, it was actually the first match that The Miz actually had on SmackDown was against Tatanka. But yeah, so Tatanka, where are we going to put his run here in the Ruthless Aggression era? I'm going to put it as bad. Again, it was reasonable. It was bad, but it wasn't the worst of returns of all time. He had a short run, he had a few matches here and there, and then he was back away doing the independents, I guess. As far as I know, he still does the occasional independents, Tatanka. I was a fan of his original run back in the early 90s, and as a part of the $1 Million Man's Corporation, but didn't really have many memorable moments other than that first match with The Miz during the Ruthless Aggression era. Next up we have Vitro in a dress, so this one's going to go straight into awful. This one was pretty bad. Basically the entire gimmick was he wore a dress. Yeah. Next up we have the ECW Zombie, and this one I'm putting in the worst of the worst, again just because it is historically bad. It is something that will be remembered for generations. It is much like the Shockmaster. It's that level of bad, so it's got to be in the worst of the worst gimmicks. And finally we have Reverend Dvon, and I'm going to put this in pretty good because I was a fan. I like this gimmick. I'm a fan of Dvon Dudley in general, and also this was the gimmick that brought in Dave Bautista to the WWE as Deacon Batista. So yeah, I was a fan of that, and I would like to see this one come back, maybe as a backstage segment at a WrestleMania or a SmackDown or Raw anniversary show. I could see them doing a little backstage segment with Reverend Dvon, because Dvon Dudley still does work for the WWE as a road agent. So that was the worst Ruthless Aggression Gimmicks tier list, ranked from pretty good to worst of the worst. I've made this one available on tiermaker.com, so if you want to go out and do this one yourself, make sure to go on and create your own tier list. You can tweet me your list at WrestleWithAndy on Twitter, share it with me on Instagram, also WrestleWithAndy. But anyway guys, what other tier lists should I make for here on the channel? Let me know in the comments section. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.